Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, depending where you're joining from today. We're here today for this session, which is one, I think, of my favorite sessions in a long, long time, where we're talking about a project that is very near to my heart, which is the Redstone project. I am sure you have heard of this project. You know, it's been in the cards for a number of years. And in particular, we're talking today about how this project, Redstone, which is a baseload concentrated solar power project, makes a signal to the market, you know, that there is a value in renewable energy that is dispatchable. Today with me, I have 4 speakers that are going to provide some further information about this project and about how it became. And I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves in case you don't know them yet. So first, I'd like to ask Nandu, please, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, Belen. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Nandu Bula. I'm the CEO for the Redstone project itself. My background is from Aqua and as well have 25 years in the energy industry. I am South African and proud to be part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nandu. Now I'd like to ask someone also from the Aqua Power team to introduce himself. Sawan, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sawan Kumar. I'm part of Aqua Power project financing team. I'm very privileged and very honored to be part of this panel. I've been involved in this financing this project for now many years. We'll talk about it in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is from the Aqua Power side, which are the developers, but I would also like to, today we have 2 people that are on the financing side from the banks that have like backed this project. And I'll ask Jing to please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jing. I'm Principal Investment Officer working for African Development Bank, overseeing 13 countries in Southern Africa. We focus on energy investment from the private sector window. It's my great pleasure being part of the Redstone transaction, taking the lead mandate arranger and coordinating bank's role for this largest investment in South Africa. Thank you.
That is quite something. The largest investment in South Africa. Excellent. Thank you very much, Jing. And last but most certainly not least, Bernard, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. I'm Bernard from the Power Infrastructure Finance team in Investec, and have been very fortunate to be part of this journey since 2018 with Aqua Power and AFDB. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So let's start this conversation. We're going to remove the slides so that we can actually just relax and talk amongst us guys. There's no one seeing us. That's not true. There's a lot of people in another room. So I'd like to welcome you guys. Here is what we're going to do today. Okay, we're going to have sort of 3 parts to this debate. And of course, we've prepared some questions that you know. First, we're going to talk about more the technology side, the project itself. Then we're going to talk about the financing. And during that time, I'm going to yield to much more capable hands. One who's been deeply involved in the financing of this project is going to take the lead on those questions. And then in the end, we're going to ask a few questions about, you know, what does it mean for the market in general? So for other countries in Southern Africa and whatnot. So first, we're going to start with very, very, very simple questions. In case you guys don't know about Redstone, it's the first time you hear, don't worry, we got you. And we're talking about why this particular project is very, very interesting, what it brings to the table, what the technology is like, what the sort of challenges that this technology has, but also what are the pros that it has. So we're going to start there. But so that you know, we do have an allocated time for questions and answers from you. And we're going to try and take as many as we can towards the end. Okay, so as I said, whether you're a technical question or specific questions about, you know, the financial arrangements, you can send them through. Use the Q&A that you have on the side, whether you're in YouTube or you are in Mayata. And what's going to happen is our technician, Andres, is going to pick them up and leave them here for us. But to start, we've prepared something. So I'd like to ask, I'm going to start with you, Nandu, since we're going to start with the technology block. So the first question I want to ask is this plan here, I'm sure that you know very well, Nandu, is North 3. And there is also a tower in D1950, and of course, Redstone is a tower. So I want to ask you about the technology, you know, what the technology is, how it works, since this is not the first time that you guys at Aqua have built one, and what differentiates it from a normal solar project.
No, thanks, Belen. Yeah, I think the Redstone project is very exciting. It is the 3rd tower in the Aqua fleet, which is which is, as you said, very exciting for us as well. Just to give you some background in terms of what Redstone is, for those that don't understand the technology, essentially the CSP is concentrated solar power, very different from your normal PV type of power. Here we are actually concentrating the thermal energy of the sun and using that to create our energy. How it is structured in terms of CSP, there's traditionally and commercially available now pretty much two types of technologies. One is the parabolic trough plant, and then the other is the tower plant, and Redstone is the tower plant. So what we have is we have a large tower, 250-meter tall tower, similar to the picture you have behind you in terms of Noor 3, and on top of the tower we have a solar receiver, which essentially receives all the energy that is reflected through the sea of mirrors at the base. For Redstone specifically, we have close to 41,000 heliostats, which is amazing. These are 25 square meter heliostats, so it gives us a nice round number of just over 1 million square meters of reflective surface, which is amazing. And that essentially transmits the solar radiation to the top of the receiver, where we have a molten salt receiver, which is our medium that we store the energy in. And that molten salt is then transferred to tanks at the base of the tower. And that tanks are then used to then go through steam generation circuit to run a steam turbine. And that's how we get our power. Fortunately for us, these type of technologies, in particular the molten storage type, allows for extensive storage time. So that then gives us the opportunity to do things like baseload running, load following, and so on, and supporting grids across the globe in terms of what this technology can provide. So I think it's very exciting for the CSP market to be seeing Redstone develop, and we're in construction now, so we hopefully will be producing some much needed energy to the country.
Yeah, I was going to say congratulations to get it here, even though, you know, probably we'll revisit that because, you know, we've gone through all the milestones, but to the team, to the whole team, and I know there has been like many people, hundreds of people involved. Congratulations. You have a picture behind of a rendering of Redstone, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to ask, where is it? Where is it located? And you know, what is the technology profile, meaning like the dispatching profile once it's built?
Yeah, so the tower is actually built in the Northern Cape province of South Africa. I think that is predominantly the area that has been extremely, let's say, resourced with respect to the solar radiation. And you'll see a lot of our projects from the renewables program are located in that area. It is in a very rural area, which also has some benefits to the local communities as well by bringing this technology in, and we can talk about that separately as well. But the project will be located in an area which is, and as per the rendering, which has already been seen the introduction of a PV plant. So we have two PV plants which are our neighbors, and we will then have a solar tower that is situated in the middle of them, which brings excitement to the local communities in terms of the development and the new innovative technologies in the area, which is very exciting for the whole industry. And I think for the tower purposes, this is our second tower in South Africa. The first tower is a steam tower that was built in round 1, and this project is around 3.5 molten salt tower, which is the second on the continent after Noor 3.
Excellent, thank you very much. And can I ask you, this project, how does it dispatch energy? What flexibility can CSP offer, and how has or is Redstone designed in this regard? Because I see some PV panels in there too. So clearly you're using the kind of like a hybrid approach.
I think maybe the picture is the CSP within the field of PV, which is not related at this stage, but we can talk about hybridization at the later stage. However, the flexibility of this plant is more in the concept of CSP towers. So the CSP towers have the ability to decouple the solar energy circuit from the steam generation circuit, which for me is something that is a little bit more innovative and a little bit more advanced than your normal parabolic trough circuits, in that you are running an independent solar charging circuit with the receiver on the top and then the molten salt hot tank and cold tank. So what we have is the transfer of that solar energy that is absorbed from the solar field into the molten salt tanks through the receiver, and we're moving the temperature of the molten salt from 300 to 565 degrees. And that's how it is being stored. And though that circuit is completely independent to the steam generation circuit. So then we have an independent steam generation circuit, which is then taking hot molten salt, and taking it through a steam generation circuit and creating steam for the turbine. And that allows us to become fully dispatchable. And that's the flexibility of that. So we can then turn down the machine to loads that follow the grid. We can ramp up to meet the peak hours. And in the South African market, I think that is very, very useful. And the flexibility is very good in the sense that we can easily respond to evening peaks, morning peaks, as well as any request from the system operator to support. In addition, we can talk about this later as well, is that the synchronous generators that we are running have the capacity to provide ancillary services to the grid operator as well. So in that, we will be the first renewable plant to be offering ancillary services to the grid, which is also a benefit to not only the energy supply, but also the quality of the dispatch for the national operator.
Yeah, and this is something that when you do it also with a renewable, renewable energy, that's absolutely amazing. And I think it's not the only technology, but it's one of the main technologies in solar that can do it. Okay, so let's talk about the milestones in the building and the commercial operation of Redstone. And I'm going to yield to Sawan here, who's going to tell us about the milestones.
Yes,
right ahead.
sure. Thank you, Belen. I think when we'll talk about the various milestones, the project, a bit on the financing side in the next section as well. But the project has been in progress for some time, but I'll focus on the current timelines. So we have already given, we've signed the PPA some time back. We have already signed all the documents. The NTP has been given. The EPC contract is mobilized on site. The construction work is ongoing. The COD is expected to be done by Q4 2023. It's about 2.5 years of construction period. So Q4 2023, when we should start seeing the actual dispatch to grid. I think that's more or less a milestone. It's 28 PPA, so 2043 till the time we are okay. But I'll give the other bit, little bit in third section 3 actually. Thanks.
So Q4 2023, Nandu, you have your work cut out for you.
Absolutely.
We're expecting big things. Very quick turnaround.
Yeah, the pressure is on, of course. The beauty of these projects is that they have a quick turnaround. We have a very tight schedule, but understandably so. And I think it comes also from the fact that we have learned quite a lot from all the other projects. We know exactly how to do these projects now. The third project does have a good learning curve. So we have quite a good expectation in terms of the schedule itself. There's always risks in construction. We all know that. There's always some things that we need to manage, but that's where we have a very strong local team to manage that as well. And I mean, I think the most important thing about the schedule, and as Sawan said, quarter 4 2023 is not far away. It seems like 2.5 years can go very fast. And on a daily basis on site, the construction program is quite energized and quite hectic to be witnessed. And I think the ramp up is starting already, and within 6-7 months we'll be at full production, full construction. And I think the beauty of the process that we followed so far is the lessons learned that we picked up from all our sites. We have the benefit of No 3, the picture that you have behind you, and then also that's in operation already. So there's some operational insights that are then filtered into the design and the management of the Redstone, and also construction mitigation that we can bring in. And then we also have the Dewa tower that is the part of the 950 project you mentioned, where it's also an advanced stage of construction going to commissioning this year. So we have real-time lessons that are being transferred between the two projects, which makes this project much more, I won't say easier, it just makes it less risky in terms of the commissioning risks and operational risks that we would have to experience. And we have an opportunity now to fix some of it, mitigate it, and proactively design out some of the issues. So Redstone is likely to benefit from all of that. And that's why the schedule itself, albeit very tight, I think is reasonable, and we believe we'll be able to be successful in that regard.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about lessons learned from Dubai but you've answered that already. I suppose things like in terms of like how you procure, what kind of innovation you're looking at, like is constantly evolving. So I don't know if you can give us a few examples of that. Put you a bit,
Yeah, I
on
mean,
the spot here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really want to mention companies that we've been working on, but it's key supply equipment that we have learned to work with some reputable companies, companies that have seen the work that they've done and some lessons that we've worked together with, both from No 3 moving on to Dewa CSP, and some of them have been replicated on Redstone. So we have a continuation of the relationship with some of these key suppliers. Which also allows for all the lessons from both the engineering side, operational side to be included in the project. And then we also have an extensive network of local subcontracting in the country that we can also call upon from our previous project, Rockport project, as well as some of the other projects, CSP projects that have taken place, not necessarily by Aqua, but the industry itself is also more advanced in terms of supporting CSP projects. So there's quite a lot going for the construction itself, and both onshore and offshore type of lessons that we are brought in. So hopefully all of that will come together and we see this project successful and operating as expected.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And it sounds great. I'm so glad, we finally got to this point. So the last question for you in the technology block is about the local footprint. You talked about a lot of contractors you call upon, you knew from before. So I want to hear about local content, about job creation that is specific to this project in South Africa, and whether, the case for this particular project is similar to other renewables or more than other renewables, or how does it compare in terms of the amount of jobs that you create for construction and also thereafter?
Okay. Yeah, I think the most exciting thing about all projects in the South African renewables industry is that there's the implementation agreement that comes with your PPA, and I think that's probably not unique in the world, but it's quite a serious component of our renewables program, which essentially asks developers to be obligated towards economic development. And these include both job creation as well as local content, enterprise development, ownership, and so on. So there's quite a whole bank of obligations that we need to follow. And of course, our role is not necessarily to stick to bare minimum, but try to exceed all of that. And that's what we're intending with Redstone. So our local content, we're trying to push in excess or close to 40%, which I think is probably leading in terms of the industry right now. There is opportunities to go even further, but as more allocations of this type of technology are realized, I think you will start seeing the local content improving. As far as jobs is concerned, during construction, very exciting. I know South Africa is going through a very difficult time, as is the world, with respect to unemployment and some impacts, both COVID plus previous socioeconomic issues that we've already had. So the good news is that as we ramp up, we're looking at around 2,000 jobs that will be created during the construction at the peak, which is very good for the local community around here as well. And I think there's a lot of expectation already with the project of this size. And we're seeing that from the comments we're receiving from the communities as well. And then in terms of local enterprise development, our intention is always to ensure that the local entrepreneurs get an opportunity to participate in this project. And we have quite key measures and KPIs to manage that. So we're very excited that we can make a huge difference to the local community. On the ownership side, part of our investment of our equity team is a community trust. And that community trust is quite a substantial part of the equity holding, which will then dedicate all of the specific earnings from that equity share into the community. And I think that's going to see some further development and opportunities for improvement of the socioeconomic situation in the local community that we find ourselves in. It's a very rural type of community, although they are historic mining type of operation. So there's a lot of skills available to be incorporated into this project, and we look forward to doing that as best as we can. And just one more thing.
Yes,
yeah, but just one more thing. You mentioned, sorry, I forgot to say, in terms of operations, we're looking at around 100 people during operations. And I think sometimes people forget, and they always try to compare technologies on the basis of how many jobs they create during operations. And one thing I'd like to say for CSP is probably the best as far as that is concerned. In terms of, I look at the metric that jobs per megawatt installed, and if you go on jobs per megawatt installed, CSP tend to be in the top as far as the jobs that it can produce, and that's why we are looking forward to going into operations and starting with our first 100 local operators as far as possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much for going into such detail. It's a great, also there is a trust in that the local communities involved in that project doing well, I think is very, very important. We're seeing a lot of unsustainable development of renewables over land, which, creates a lot of NIMBY in other areas of the world. So it's good that, you're mitigating that from the word go. And without further ado, we are going to move into the financing side, or like part of this conversation. Although that does not mean that you cannot send questions. So you can still send your questions, send them in. Okay, we'll consider them. And I'd just like to yield to someone who's been involved. And my thinking is that you guys have spent more time financing and refinancing this project that Nando is going to spend actually building it, but I yield to you guys so that you can go through your conversation. Right ahead.
Thanks so much, Belen. I think, financing for this project has been quite a journey, quite an interesting journey rather. As we all know, this is part of the REAP program. So it was bid long back, almost around 3.5 back in 2014. We did put together financing package as required by the bid, but project went through its own journey. There were several delays, or so to say. By the time we signed the PPA in 2018, we had to realign our entire financing package. We had to almost start from scratch, and we did, of course. We brought African Development Bank, AFDB, as a lead bank to this transaction, and they came with a big ticket. And on the back of AFDB, we were able to attract significant interest from DFIs. We worked together and brought a number of banks from the DFIs world. But still, the DFIs, we got the money, so to say, not everything, but we got a large part of money, but still had some gaps. For example, some of the solutions, for example, the hedging and everything, which is not really forte of DFIs. So we started looking at commercial banks and options. And at that time, we brought Investec into the transaction, almost like, I think, early 2019. They initially came just as a hedge provider for dollar or hedging portion, so to say. But with time, and as they got to know about the transaction, they also became a lender as well. And on the back of that, we were able to attract a lot of interest from commercial lenders as well. So today, the way the project stands, we have significant number of DFIs, including AFDB, and also significant number of commercial banks. So both the things allowed us to kind of make a very interesting package, or kind of fill all the gaps. And we got probably best of both the worlds. And I'd rather let Jing and Bernard speak about their own journeys internally. But there's one point I want to say, that often people think that ACWA Power has been a very, I would say, patient, or let's say, tenacious developer for the last 6-7 years, or standing behind this project. But we cannot achieve what we have, or we could not have achieved, without the stakeholders that we have, including the lenders we have, AFDB and Investec, and all the lenders who have supported us. Without the relationship that we have, they have stood with us in the thick and thin. They have acted us as not as a partner across the table, not as a lender across the table, but more like partners sitting with us and discussing with us issues in a very frank and open manner. So I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have lenders like them. So I would rather first let Jing speak about her experience as a lead development bank, a lead bank for this transaction, as an anchor bank with the largest ticket size, and also let Bernard speak about his journey or his experience internally, and how did they, as a commercial bank, they turn around and got into the project. So maybe over to you, Jing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sawant. You have been really our financing engineer in putting this, huge amount of debt financing together tirelessly. And I fully agree with you. I feel the PPP in the African context should be read as patient, persistent, and partnership. Yeah, you click all the box, right? So to provide the audience with a bit of background on this long journey from the financing perspective, As you know, the time lag between the award in 2015 in signing of the PPA and the signing of the PPA in 2018 lead to fundamental changes of the project, including the EPC contract, the security package, and shared structure. So for this reason, most of the previous committed lender unfortunately exit from the transaction in May 2018. So we formed a new lending consortium with aim of reaching the financial close in January 2019. Unfortunately, one of the lenders could not get to the finishing line, so we had to, extend the IA again until July 2019 and form a larger kind of lending consortium to mitigate the risk of the last-minute funding gap. So eventually, we reached the dry financial close with other 5 DFIs, including FMO, DEG, CDC, DBS8, and IDC, and 3 South African commercial banks, including Investec, Upstart, and Salam. Thankfully, after a prolonged negotiation between Eskom and Aqua, 17 months later, the scheduled COD date in the PPA was extended in December 2020. So all lenders went through the second round of board approval, and we signed amendment of finance documentations on April 16 this year. And subsequently, notice to proceed was issued, and hedging was in place end of April. As someone mentioned, I feel we are really working with a very strong and persistent developer, Aqua, and collaborative lending consortium in this very challenging and rewarding journey. Talking about our role as a lead mandate arranger. So in one hand, we are coordinating with sponsors led by Aqua, 10 lenders group, and 5 advisors. On the other hand, we are leading the commercial, technical, and legal due diligence and negotiation financing documentations. What I find a beauty in the financing structure is that we have very good mix of international and local DFIs, different financial institutions, and South African commercial banks in this transaction with very complementary skill and perspective. So the DFI will bring in a lot of kind of disciplines in terms of environmental and social kind of requirement, and also the technical due diligence, whereby we really appreciate the valuable experience the South African commercial bring in doing this REIPPP round. So as a lead mandate arranger, AFDB's was broke in 2018. And someone mentioned the anchor kind of lender's role. So let me elaborate a bit, because the total debt financing requirement is about 7.8 billion ZAR. So we have put a very big ticket of 3 billion in order to make sure that we don't have much financing gap. However, when new lenders express the interest in joining the transaction, or existing lenders express interest in increasing the ticket size, then we reduce our size. So we see ourselves as a catalyst in this kind of a transaction in order to have more development outcome as a DFI. Over to you, Bernard.
Thanks, Jing. From an Investec side, we have a very long history with Aqua Power, which stems back from 2012 when the Aqua Power South Africa Bokpoort achieved preferred bidder status. And based on that relationship, we were introduced to the Redstone CSP project. Our power and infrastructure finance team has a very strong track record and experienced in CSP, with the team participating in a total of close to 400 megawatts of CSP. And, we brought that knowledge to the table. We supported Redstone, like Sawan mentioned, back in 2018, predominantly from a hedging, account bank, and agency perspective to supplement, the role that AFDB and the other DFIs played in the transaction. And in 2019, we also became a lender across various facilities to the project, which then facilitated the introduction of various other commercial lenders. And as Jing mentioned, instrumental to all of that was the role that AFDB played in crowding in, the likes of ourselves and other commercial lenders. Thanks.
Thank you, Bernard, and thank you, Jing. I think thanks a lot for sharing the details. I think one of the questions that's often asked from us and is that that when CSP, when we're doing the financing, is considered a very nascent technology, so to say, not so much track record, and so to say. I think I just want to highlight that one point is that for us as Aqua Power, we as a sponsor are sector agnostic. We do technology agnostic projects across the world. It was all about identifying the risk and how do we mitigate them, right? I think one of the key features of this project is that we were obviously in constant discussion with lenders, advisors, and we identified the key risk, and that's why the security package that we offered this project was so important. And through constant discussion and constant negotiation with lenders and other stakeholders, EPC contractor, 1M contractor, I think we were able to get to a landing that was robust security package, which and banks were able to kind of justify internally. That's one of the things that maybe if you're going to spend a minute or so on Jing and Bernard, if you want to talk about it a bit, that how did you see selling this project internally?
That's a very good question. It wasn't an easy journey. The complexity comes from various kind of aspects. Sorry to quote you, but sophisticated sponsor is one of the aspects. And also a delay in signing the PP and IA, delay in obtaining the extension of the PPA itself, and also the sophisticated technology, which forced us to one extra mile. To kind of examine the track record in order to find a risk mitigant. So indeed, we spent kind of double the effort that we have spent in the usual project in doing the due diligence on this project. And we also spent a lot of effort in kind of onboarding the new lenders, do the hand holding to allow them to quickly get into the mode. So now would you like to share
Yeah, from an Investec side, and very much echoing AFDB's point, is we took a lot of comfort from the fact that the track record that Aqua Power has demonstrated over the last 9 years in this industry, with about 1,500 megawatts of CSP experience under the belt, excluding Redstone, and the combination of sponsor, EPC, O&M being NOMAC, your dedicated operations arm, and the owner's engineer team experience, that really made a big difference for us. And the fact that this is your third CSP molten salt tower, and basically a blueprint of the 100 megawatt Diva project in Dubai. So that made was a big contributing factor for Investec supporting this transaction.
Thanks a lot, but it looks like we gave a lot on EPC, which is a sponsor we could have managed a lot. But no, thanks a lot. Look, I think thanks. And one of the questions that is being asked, or kind of people are very curious to understand, is that what are the noteworthy features of this project, right? I think Jing very clearly mentioned the size itself is quite a lot, right? I think we talked about almost about 8 billion rands of financing, which is significant. I think one of the initial statement was it is the largest investment into renewable projects in South Africa that has its own set of challenges. But I think the other noteworthy features was that we did a lot of things in the financing. For example, it is a CSP project. It has a ramp up. So we have a feature which basically have a lower DSI requirement in the beginning. We also have a repayment profile which kind of matches the revenues. Although we don't have CPI, but it also matches the revenues. We also have hedging, which is kind of bespoke in the sense that it allows for a lower rate in the beginning and higher in the back end. So there are many various things that which played into it, but more importantly, the dynamics between the DFIs and commercial lenders at the integrated discussion, those are very interesting ones. I think there were some lessons to be learned from us as well, something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think it was a very interesting financing package that we finally put together, which finally got signed up by the banks. So I think I guess that should be fine. I think there's a question about roles that you played as. I think AFDB, you mentioned that you played as a lead bank, and I think Bernard, you already highlighted that role that you played as a commercial bank, as well as a hedge provider, as an account bank, and the agency, as well as ancillary business, right? So I think that's quite a lot you've done. But maybe we can spend a minute or so. What lessons you have brought from other projects in the region or in Africa, for example, for FDB? what we can say from our side at Aquapower side, which Nandu mentioned, that we obviously are very keen on this project, have always been very keen on this project, and we brought a lot of learnings to this project from all our renewable projects, but more importantly, from CSP projects. Like we have had a separate dedicated team which kind of has a very regular knowledge transfer across teams on the CSP technologies. Nandu has been part of that for years now, and that is very critical for us. We brought all these learnings in this project. And more important, we brought the same suppliers, the key suppliers. For example, the solar field and the receiver are same as Diva CSP. So I think from us, those are the key learnings we brought from different projects. The financing for this project is obviously quite unique. So we have to stitch from scratch. But maybe Jing and Bernard, if you want to speak about any learning from other projects that you brought to this, or you think you have imbibed in this project, maybe happy to listen to you.
Indeed. So prior to Redstone, the AFDB has been quite active in financing the CSP project already. So we are financiers of the Node 1, Node 2, and Node 3 in Morocco. We're also financiers of the Zina Solar 1, which is 100 megawatt CSP trial by Abangoa in South Africa, and the round 3 of the ARIA PPP as well. So all those valuable experience we have went through really help us to understand better the renewable energy market, CSP technology in particular.
Yeah, thanks, Jing, and so on. I think from an Investec side, there's many learnings that we try to incorporate in this transaction. Predominantly, I think, flexibility was very important. To our knowledge, CSP projects are very complex. And in South Africa, I think most of the CSPs, didn't achieve their COD on the SCOD date due to various reasons, and predominantly force majeure. So it was very important for us to make sure that there's some flexibility for the project in the event that there is a slight delay. And with that, how we try to structure around that is by, sculpting the repayment profile to allow the project to ramp up over those first 3 years and to reduce, kind of accommodate the project, the debt service obligations during that period. And like you mentioned, so another way that we try to, alleviate the financial burden on the project was via structured interest rate hedges, which were implemented on the transaction to increase the cover ratios in the early part of the year of the project's repayment period, in order to just give a little bit more flexibility. And then again, with the current interest rate environment in South Africa, where the Reserve Bank has cut rates by 3% since the beginning of 2020, advising and working with AFDB and yourselves around the JABA, and taking advantage with that tranche of this low interest rate environment.
Thank you. I see a bit running short of time, but maybe there's one question that frequently comes from audience. And I see a lot of questions in audience, and we'll answer them just in a bit. I just don't lose a chain of thoughts in the financing side. I think one of the questions which typically comes from audience is that, or people that generally ask that, how do you see future of CSP tower and applicability across countries, and will you have appetite invest? So I think from Aquapower side, what we can say is that we are a growth-oriented company. We constantly evaluate opportunities across the world, and to the extent we can do it, we definitely want to do it. We always are very keen to support the countries and to achieve the goals they have set for themselves. If the country's goals are to be achieved by CSP tower, yes, we'll definitely be there. So that's all we can say. Maybe Bernard and Jing, if you want to add anything, what's your views? Happy to listen to your views as well.
Yeah, we believe CSP has a good potential to be replicated in other countries, and we will definitely consider when a new opportunity emerge. For example, we learned about Namibia's current effort in experimenting the CSP as one of the renewable energy options.
Yeah, from an Investec side, we're very happy to consider CSP in countries where it does make sense. And it very much depends on that country's cost of power and the technology mix. So I think it's very much country dependent.
very much. Thanks a lot, Jing and Bernard. I'll hand over to Belen. Maybe I took a little longer than I thought.
No,
Belen?
no, thank you so much. You've done a great job, and actually, I think it's fine. We did have a lot of questions, as you can see from the audience, but we'll see to how many we can get back. Maybe we cannot answer all of them, but we were going to try for sure. And if you keep sending them, we'll consider them as well. I wanted to ask just a few quick questions. A little bit more about the dispatchability of this project to the grid, Nandu, with you. And how it adjusts with the demand in South Africa. And there was a question from the audience that I want to link here, that it asked whether you have a specific payment for ancillary services, or whether it's included in your tariff. So I don't know if you could kind of talk about these things, about the dispatchability, how Redstone is changing the dispatchability, and in that grid, in that area. To cover demand, and also whether you get a specific payment for ancillary services, or is part of the tariff that you're already getting paid.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks, Bernard. And so, yeah, in terms of the dispatchability of the plant, as I mentioned earlier, is that because of the flexibility in the way the technology approaches steam generation, we are decoupled from the solar resource, which is firstly a very good thing, in the sense that we can then react and be completely dispatchable as per the grid needs. We also have the benefit of a 12-hour storage system. So the molten salt tanks have been sized such that we can capture sufficient energy in the storage system to run further 12 hours in a normal day. So you would run your normal day plus additional 12 hours at full nominal load. And I've seen some of the questions that mentioned what is the size of this project, and it's my mistake. I didn't mention it up front. It's a 100 megawatt turbine. So we're looking at, with the 12 hours of storage, we can run for 12 hours at 100 megawatts. But as we've seen in Bockwood, our other project, the parabolic trough project, where we only have 9 hours, we've managed to run 24/7 operations. And I think last year in November, we announced a record of continuous operating that we did. And how that is done is essentially you would assess the storage that you have in the system and run through the normal daily load curve. So in the South African market, the daily demand starts early morning around 5 o'clock in the morning, and then peaks in the morning until around 8, 9 o'clock, when then it drops down and stays stable through the day. And then again, you have a larger peak in the evening around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, which then peaks up to about 6, 7 in the evening, and then drops down by about 9 o'clock. Of course, this is seasonal dependent, so the size of the peaks vary. However, that is just the traditional load curve. So what the CSP plants can do is that when called upon, they can increase their load to follow the demand in the system, and then reduce the load during the day when the demand is not as high, and then once again ramp up in the evening peak. And that way we can follow the curve, or serve as a straight flat 100 megawatt unit, depending on the system requirements. And after evening peak, there's two options. We can either shut down the plant can be shut down and then restarted in the morning if need be. However, similar to Bockwood, we could then continuously operate at the lower level right through the night, and then first thing in the morning load it up again. So it can be a load following base load plant, and it's all dependent on the size of the storage that is made available. In our case, we have 12 hours of storage, which will allow us significant opportunity to do so.
I think
round 3.
The other question
Yes,
is
sorry.
also being asked is about ancillary services. Are we offering it, and is there remuneration for that?
Yeah. So in terms of ancillary services, the people that understand the South African grid code requirements will know that part of the grid code requirements is that for the renewable plants to be available for ancillary services, not necessarily contracted to do so. However, for the Redstone project, we have offered that as a value offering to the offtaker in terms of our total package of offering. So it is essentially being offered at no cost to the operator. However, it's part and parcel of the complete value offering package that we have. So it is the first. So Redstone will be the first renewable plant that will be offering renewable ancillary services. And the ancillary services that we've been contracted for essentially is 10-minute reserve, because of our potential to ramp up very quickly. Instantaneous reserve we will not be providing, but we will be providing supplementary reserve, which is an energy that will be made available at at night in case that the grid needs it. And we know in the South African market, there have been occasions when we've been going through, let's say, high demands or rotational load shedding, where these things can become very applicable. So we have agreed to do that. And then the most important one is, of course, our AGC operation, which is automatic generation control, which essentially is assisting the grid in the morning's peaks, in the morning periods, with regards to managing the frequency on the grid. So we will be supporting that from that perspective as well. So the benefit that Redstone provides to both the off-taker is not only energy, but is also assisting with quality of supply and stability of the grid as far as the size of the plant is concerned.
It makes a huge difference. You're starting to add a lot more value to the power you give. So it's not just the power, it's also the way the power works and what it helps you with in the grid. So I think that's great, and it's a first, but I suspect it's not going to be the last, you know, because all the services do have a cost that the grid needs to take up. So I wanted to ask you, based on all of this that you've said, do you see more CSP in the future of South African energy generation, since the resource is so good, you know, since the grid also can do with all of those ancillary services, since there has so many social impacts as well that are positive, you know, in terms of the jobs? Do you see more projects in the future?
Well, I mean, one would hope that there would be projects with CSP. As CSP remains competitive in the industry, I think we would, of course, always be considering CSP. South Africa has abundance of resource. The DNI is second to only, I think, Chile in the world. So there is definitely the opportunity of using that resource productively. But of course, it then depends on what the country is looking for in terms of its requirements. And CSP does provide the opportunity to cover most of those requirements, in the sense of peak following base load operation from a renewables perspective, as well as ancillary services, which we will be proving with Redstone. And I think once all of these values are then captured and reassessed, I think maybe the discussion around future incorporation of CSP will be brought back onto the table. At this point in time, we will make sure that we ensure Redstone is operating successfully, and use that as a benchmark for any future decision.
Excellent. Okay, just one more question for you guys from me, and then we'll read some from the audience, if that's okay. And I wanted to ask, and I open this to all of you, whether you see an opportunity for this kind of projects in the region, you know, if you see other countries that could do with this kind of value added. So I'll just open to all of you. Maybe you can start, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. So we learned from the non-power that CSP has been one of the options in terms of renewable energy they are experimenting. And so we yet to hear from them on the outcome of this experiment to decide our intervention. So
that's good news. What about Bernard, Sawan, or even Nando? You want to add anything else?
I'll give Bernard and them a chance first.
Yeah, Nando,
go ahead,
speak on
Bernard.
our behalf.
Yeah, I think, you know, certainly I think if countries come to market and they, you know, it makes sense for them to add that into their generation mix, that, you know, these opportunities will present themselves. So we'll have to see, you know, how it all plays out.
Now the time has come, Sawan and Nando. Yeah, go on.
Nando, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I just reiterate that I think we are very excited about the Redstone project and the opportunities that it can provide as far as signaling what can be done and what can be the benefits of such a project. So from that perspective, I believe that there will be people watching us quite closely and to see the value offering and how we actually execute the project. So based on that, I think the future can see some opportunities with respect to CSP in the areas that we operate in.
Excellent, thank you very much. I thought that I had heard Botswana also said that they wanted a CSP in a few other countries, but I might be wrong. You know, sometimes maybe I confuse things, but I think if anything, like, you guys have such a great resource in there that, you know, with the right structure for the project, it could make sense. But we're hoping for all of the policymakers in those countries to consider this technology, you know, and give it a chance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask a few questions that people have sent. We have about, say, 5 minutes, and then we'll have to cut. So guys, take a look at the questions that, you know, our colleagues is being adding on the side, if there is any that you want to answer. I just like to ask a few specific, and I open to all of you, okay? One is, there was a very interesting question that says, in the design and financing for this project, is it bespoke or can it be rolled out to other countries? So I wanted to ask about exactly this, like how bespoke is the engineering of this specific project, and how much changes does it need for other countries, other off-taking profiles, and likewise with the financing? I think it's a very clever question, actually. And it says here, could it be rolled out in a cookie cutter approach? So Nando, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I'll allow the team to talk about the financing side of it, but I think the CSP towers specifically and CSP technology in itself is not necessarily from a design perspective fully bespoke type of plants, because they are all dependent on the local resource, the local landscape itself. So they have to be designed specifically for the areas in which they are looking to be implemented or executed. So in that perspective, they're not quite bespoke. But what we have proven now is that as the technology is maturing, we are finding that a lot of the plants are being replicated. So for instance, the Dewa plant and the Redstone plant are going to be pretty much similar plants because of the key equipment that is being implemented. So there is an opportunity for some sort of cookie cutter kind of, let's say, transfer of key supply and key design works. However, I would not suggest that they fully, let's say, copy options are available. These are really high advanced technology designs, and therefore bespoke is probably the way to go before any consideration on duplication is done, specifically based on the regional constraints and the resource availability.
Yeah, maybe I can take up the financing part of it, right? I think financing is unique for this project, right? And I feel that at least for some time it will be like this. It will not be cookie cutter. I think if you want to finance similar project in, let's say, Dubai or in your geography, you have to it has to be started from scratch. I wouldn't say it's a cookie cutter approach. The financing is completely different than technology. Technology can be more replicated. Financing, yes, key features maybe, but more or less it will be you have to design from start. I think this is a question from Gordon. Right? Okay, yes, go ahead, Belen.
No,
I just wanted to ask Bernard, Jing, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, I think the limited recourse framework, you know, is applied consistently across big infrastructure assets where you've got a long offtake agreement with the local utility. But then, as Sohan said, you know, there is nuances to every single transaction, and I think that's where the financial engineering comes in. So it's almost like I want to say yes and no. It really depends on the specific asset and the specific offtake and you know your entire, you know, project package before that can be finalized.
Jing, you had already Nord, you had a number of projects. So how much did you reuse, if you like, or how much can it be applied a cookie cutter approach?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the great lessons is really to have an anchor kind of lenders. I believe this model can be potentially replicated in other kind of similar CSP projects. And I agree with Sawan and Bernard on their point as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so one last question from me, and then you guys can pick whichever you want to answer. This is the project 24/7? Or is it dispatchable, and what is the capacity factor? You've already gone through it a bit, but you haven't, I don't think you have talked about the capacity factor, and I think it's something that is very different from other renewable projects. So how many hours also a year are you looking to operate? Go right ahead, Nando.
Yeah, so it is fully dispatchable, like you said. As I mentioned earlier, with the 12-hour storage, it can go 24/7, no problem. This is the value offering that it can provide. However, for the round 3.5 PPA that we have, our obligation is to run for 17 hours a day, essentially, which during which period we will be running at 100% load factor. So we will be trying to maximize that capacity. So if you look at from an energy-based perspective, our load factor for the year is likely to be between 65 to 75% on a complete basis, but our dispatching allowance is only between 5:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. So effectively 17 hours a day, we will be aiming to run at full load at 100 megawatts to support the grid. But we can, of course, then change our loading depending on the grid requirements, and of course our ancillary services come into play as well. So that will be the subtle nuance.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nandu. And what about you guys? Is there any question specific you want to answer? I'll start with you, Sawan.
Yeah, just a quick question. I see people have a lot of interest in who is the owner's engineer. I think it's a question from
and
Gerard
other companies involved, actually. So yes, please.
It's Wally Parson, right, Nandu? Wally Parson is the owner's engineer, correct?
That's right. Yeah, Holy Parson is our owner's engineer, and I think maybe something to talk about in terms of that. We've chosen Holy Parson specifically because of the track record we have with them, and they are also the owner's engineer for our Dewa project. And our intention of using them was essentially to transfer immediately all of the lessons learned and all of the new innovative options that have been brought to the table, so that we don't lose any of that. And that's similar. I mean, if you talk about cookie cutter, that's not necessarily the intention behind it, but essentially what we're trying to do is transfer all of those skills that we picked up, and that was part of the lessons learned. So Holy Parsons is our owner's engineer, and we are very happy to have them on board.
We're also asking you about the steam turbine. Oh, Siemens. I guess.
Maybe I should go through the whole key suppliers, and that way we can answer the question. So I think for the benefit of our suppliers as well, our receiver is through CMI.
John Cockrell, which is now called
John Cockrell. Yes, John Cockrell will. They have done several receivers. In fact, they've also been the manufacturers of the receiver in South Africa for the Key Tower, which is the first tower, the steam tower. So we're using them in Redstone. They also in Dewa project. And then for the solar field, we're using Bright Source Energy. They have also a very advanced technology as far as heliostats is concerned, and the control systems to manage that and link up with John Cockrell's receiver. And that Bright Source technology is also being replicated from Dewa CSP. And Bright Source has an amazing track record in the US as well. They have several plants. They have 3 plants in particular, the Ivan Park installations, where they started the heliostats execution, and I think they progressed to other plants in other parts of the globe as well. So we are very confident in their abilities to provide us with a very suitable heliostat that can provide the necessary flux and the energy required for the receiver itself. And then the turbine, as we mentioned, is the Siemens turbine. So those are the key equipment for this plant. I don't know if that covers pretty much.
EPC SEPCO 3, right?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Our EPC is SEPCO 3, and they also have an design engineering partner, and Empresarios Agrofares from Spain, who are supporting them. And we have full confidence in both of them as well. And we have a track record with them as well.
Excellent. I think Bernard, Jing, would you like to answer any of these specific questions that you see there? I don't know if there is very many for you there. Anything specific?
No, I don't think there's too many for the financing.
No, there was a lot, but I can see here there is not that many. Well, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very, very much. It's interesting to see, I think if I'm not wrong, and Nandu, please correct me, because even though the plants are the same, these have complete different heliostats, right? It has the larger 180 meter types. When you said 25 meter, I was like, oh, okay, this is a complete different project release. A lot more heliostats. So even though they're very similar, there is also some evolution going on in here, which is great to see.
Yeah. There's a lot of decisions that were taken in terms of what type of heliostats we want to use. I'll talk about more specifically for the Bright Source, the smaller 25 square meter heliostats we've used, not specifically in terms of any concerns or any changes in terms of capability of the heliostats, but we also looked at a unique angle for Bright Source in the sense that we are implementing it in a South African environment. And we also need to look at socioeconomic opportunities that can come through that. And one of the big things that we've identified with the Bright Source value offering is that the mirrors lend itself to some local type of entrepreneurs that can be set up for the cleaning of the solar field as well, which does help us with our socioeconomic requirements as well. So there are some other ideals that we brought in, not necessarily in terms of the product itself, but in terms of what that allows us to assist with respect to our obligations in the community.
No, but this is really interesting because it's all linked, right? It's not only about having, it's not only about the numbers that technology gives you, it's all the things that you're considering from also the financing perspective and the localization. So this is great. And the fact that you can probably manufacture them much easily locally than when they're much larger. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nandu. Thank you very much, Sawan. And thank you very, very much, Bernard and Ying, for coming with your wealth of knowledge about this project, about the financing. I know that, in teams, there's always people that are more like in the technology side and more people that are in the financing side. And, we only really understand a certain amount of what the other guys are doing, but we're learning such a great deal. I can see already Ying going along with when I said 25 meters. So clearly you guys have all been impregnated now with the CSP bag and how it works, and how the technology is designed. So thank you very much for participating. I do hope that we see more projects. I do hope, rather than the value, it's worth it, that we can actually look at the face of it and say, yes, exactly, the cost opportunity is there. So thank you once more.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, you've got to look at Redstone in the context of the energy landscape in the country, where there is a supply shortfall of between 3,000 and 5,000 megawatts, and this project will be up and running in 24 months. Producing, like Nandu said, on a dispatchable nature, and really offsetting the carbon footprint in this country, where, if there's a shortfall in during a peak demand where, the grid can't provide, it is really offsetting, the LCO plants that get fired up to make up that gap. So very important not to forget that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you have like carbon-free solar energy that is using a resource you already have also in South Africa. So thank you very much to all of you. And thank you very much for the people in the audience. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully you'll come and tell us, how the construction is going and how the plant is operating very, very soon. Thank you very much.